about Bill Clinton's embattled choice for Surgeon General. A senior administration official confirms Dr. Henry Foster performed what's termed a small number of sterilizations on mentally retarded women. I guess that was the Dr. Henry Foster Mandatory Sterilization Act of 1970. The source says Dr. Henry Foster performed in conjunction with radio broadcaster Bob Grant. Performed this... The source says Dr. Henry Foster performed the hysterectomies some 2 decades ago when the medical community believed the operations provided significant health benefits to the women. The official says Foster stopped doing the procedures by the late 1970s as medical opinion changed. The nomination of the prominent Tennessee gynecologist obstetrician as the nation's top doctor has been rocked by controversy. Anti-abortion forces have attacked earlier revelations that he performed about 3 dozen abortions in his career. You know, we should get a hold of Jimmy the Greek. No, we can't get a hold of Jimmy the Greek. We can't get a hold of Jimmy the Greek. He's been put out of business. He's been put out of business. No, we should get a hold of some guy that takes action. You know what? Go out, Michael. Take a car. I'll pay for the car. And go up to Morris Park. Look where you see some, or go up to Pelham Parkway North. And if you get around north of Williamsbridge Road, okay, there where the parkway is, there's no alternate side of the street parking there. It's a very bucolic environment. It's not what you'd think of as the... Wherever you see a satellite dish, knock on the door and ask somebody in there what they're getting, what the odds are that this guy is going to get nominated. All right? I want some of that action.
For active duty, Jay, you know, the first thing that I take issue with when it comes to affirmative action is the term affirmative action itself. You know, they always hide these unjust programs behind nice-sounding names. There's nothing affirmative about trying to right the wrongs of the past by ending up discriminating against the majority. And, Jay, you know, America and white people are the only country and people in the world, in history, that's supposed to feel guilty for the way that historical events have fallen into place. And, you know, Jay, Laura Blackburn, who should be in jail, by the way, for misuse of city housing funds, more black, white-collar crime. She said there's a heritage, a legacy that we're responsible for. Well, Jay, blacks also have a heritage, a legacy, which seems to be tied very closely to the continent of Africa. So I think American blacks should be made to pay for the transgressions that blacks are committing in Africa. Murder, genocide, starvation, mutilization, slavery, and cannibalism.
I'm just full of love.
I don't know when they're going to play that. Actually, you know, you're a good lawyer, too. You're a good lawyer, too. You do have a riveting way with logic. All right.
But, well, you know, it's amazing how someone like Laura, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Did you hear? No, I'm rushing because I have a lot of calls I want to, because Joe Franklin's coming on, so
okay.
I can't give you as much time.
It's amazing how someone like her will desperately try to justify something when they know that they're going to be the beneficiary. And don't be fooled by her almost congenial manner.
Did you hear the whole debate?
No.
Did you hear about it when I worked on Hazel Duke?
Oh, of course, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I just thought you'd like that.
Yeah, she's another winner.
All right, okay. Thank you, John.
Good night.
All right, good night. John.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, John.
Jay, you know, Al Sharpton, of course, is on his way to Albany. Another gimmick to keep his name in the news, to keep the contributions coming in so he doesn't have to go get a real job.
He's on his way to Albany, but notice he's going to take time out to come back to New York to do his radio show on Saturday.
Yeah, he's all fraud. They're all frauds. But by marching to Albany to protest these cutbacks, Jay, he's saying in so many words that he knows there's a disproportionate amount of blacks that leech off of our tax dollars. He wouldn't be taking this march to protect the rights of white people who he hates. But if white people say this or speak the truth, we're called racist for saying it. And then, of course, you have that panderer, Cardinal O'Connor. You know, I'd like to know where it's written that we're not allowed to criticize someone because they have a collar or they wear robes. Cardinal O'Connor is not a decent person. He is not a nice person. He's a Marxist. He's a Leninist, a panderer to the worst elements among us, and a coward. He does nothing but criticize the policies of the United States, and he wants to keep into place these wasteful policies that have destroyed us for years. And you notice the fright tactics that the left is using. Everyone's going to die. No matter what it is, cut back anything and everyone's going to die.
Well, in his defense, Cardinal O'Connor was a Navy chaplain for many years, John. I think he was ill-advised to make his bed with Sharpton, because he's, in embracing Sharpton and being photographed in that fashion, he is embracing an individual who supports Khalid Abdul Muhammad, who actually made derisive sexual references to the Pope.
Well, you know, Admiral LaRocque, who hasn't had one good thing to say about the United States in 20 years since he retired, he was also an admiral in the U.S. Navy. Evidently, that doesn't mean that they remain patriotic Americans. And I go by what people are saying and doing, not by what they did, their actions.
All right.
But one other thing.
Yeah?
Bill Clinton's latest gimmick to gain popularity among another voting bloc, servicemen and their families. Let's not be fooled by his sudden concern for the health of our servicemen, trying to get to the bottom of the Gulf War sickness.
Yeah.
He's just looking for more votes from a certain group and to up his approval ratings.
Amongst veterans, that's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's not ever be... See, he's earned his title Slick Willie once again.
You know something, John? You and I are both speaking truth to power.
That
Thank
sounds
you.
like a goodie.
Thank you, John. On WA.
Jay, as you know, today the Republicans passed a $500 tax break
For poor women.
for poor
Right.
people having children.
Good work.
You know, those children that the liberals and Democrats say that Republicans and conservatives don't care about.
Right.
When was the last time we had a Democratic tax break? They were only interested in raising taxes, and yet it's the Republicans who always take it in the neck for putting money back in people's pockets. And by the way, I wonder if the news and the media are going to concentrate more or as much on this tax break for children as they were to attack the Republicans, conservatives for taking the food out of the mouths of children, which of course was a lie.
No.
But don't hold your breath.
Nah, they'll never talk about it.
Secondly, Jay, I don't know if you were watching the news, but a New York City school teacher, Gracia Rivera, was collecting $42,000 in yearly salary as a teacher for New York, while she was on welfare and collecting food stamps also.
What, for 10 years?
Something like that. I think she stole $35,000 from the city.
Yeah.
Is this another example of poverty causing crime?
It's incredible. I'll tell you something, and we haven't even scratched the surface of welfare fraud. Remember when they corralled all those guys sneaking into the subways, jumping turnstiles over the summer, they found that a full 25% of them were on the rolls, not only in New York, but in New Jersey.
Yeah, and this woman had 2 Social Security cards. And then the liberals and Democrats bashed Republicans for trying to do something about welfare fraud and Social Security fraud. Now, it's obvious, Jay, who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. The Democrats don't want anything done about this because these people are anarchists for the most part, and they want America to fall apart.
Well, you know what the penalty in communist China is from stealing from the people, and they call it stealing from the people.
Hmm?
You know what the penalty is? 1 bullet in the back of the head, and then they charge your family for the bullet.
Yeah, well, that's why these people in America who complain aren't about to go anywhere, because they know that they couldn't get away with half of the things that they get away with in this racist country. And finally, Jay, I heard the vicious Carl on another talk show. He was saying, you know, these conservatives are crazy. They want to execute people. It costs over $1 million to execute someone. If they kept them in jail for life, it would cost only $700,000 for the whole lifelong sentence. Yeah, you know why, Jay? Because we tolerate 17, 18 years of appeals.
Hey, listen, John, you get what you pay for.
Now, if we had one appeal and that was it, and then the person got what they deserved, what they were convicted for within a year, we wouldn't be spending half of this money.
Also, if it's a good thing to take murderers out of circulation, cold-blooded, vicious, particularly ideologically motivated murderers out of circulation, then it's worth every penny that we pay. I'd rather pay to execute murderers than pay to give money to welfare crooks.
That's right. There's a principle involved, and these people who are for life imprisonment without parole, it didn't do Donna Paint any good, did it, Jay?
The only trouble with New York's death penalty is it doesn't go far enough. Committing a single murder won't land you on death row. Too antiseptic. I don't like the death by lethal injection. I like to see them fry.
Me too.
All right. Thank you, John.
A month after the November 8th elections, The American people are tired of confrontational politics, and he's done nothing but make fun of the Republicans and oppose them since. If Republicans were doing this, it would be called obstructionism. They love that word. Secondly, Jay, you've heard the liberals say the Republicans think they have a monopoly on family values. Well, the fact is, Jay, Republicans and conservatives do. And let's leave divorce out of this. Two people who end up incompatible, no matter who they are, that can happen to anybody. The question is, what party encourages families to stay together if possible? It isn't Republicans that make excuses for kids having babies, saying it gives them something to love. It isn't Republicans and conservatives who encourage women today to do without men. Bring up your child by yourself. Who needs men? Conservatives and Republicans don't tell lesbians and gays that there's nothing wrong with adopting a baby and bringing it up in a home with two people of the same sex. And Dan Quayle, who was vilified by those who made fun of his ideas of family values, has been vindicated even by liberals who finally admit that he's right, which means they admit that they're wrong, which means that we conservatives have better ideas of what family values are. So, Jay, we will always be vindicated on the conservative side because our ideas are just common sense, and these people have no facts to back up, and they always turn out to be wrong.
All right. Thank you, John.
All right, Jay, thanks.
Thank you.
Telling the typical big lie, just repeat it over and over until you brainwash enough people, that the Republicans are continuing their policies of giving tax breaks to the rich. I'm going to say it again, Jay. The rich did not get tax breaks in the 1980s. They ended up paying 11% more of all federal taxes, and people on the lower end of the economic scale ended up paying 2% less, from 8% to 6%. So let's not fall for that continuing, repeated lie of this administration that the 1980s was a detriment to working class people. It helped all people, and especially the poor. Secondly, I hear these new advertisements, Jay. Sandra Feldman whining again about shortage of books and equipment.
Well, you know why? Because the students are stealing 1 million books a year.
Yeah, and computers, and if the teachers would stop stealing the funds to go on trips, she might have money for the school.
Gotta get going. All right, folks, thanks. Let's knew that something had gone wrong because they got back, and that is in the that's in the last year. 39 U.S. jets and smaller passenger planes have taken off or left the gate without enough fuel.
Yeah, nobody ever just calls up and says, you know what?
No, I'm sorry.
You're right.
The past 9 years. The past 9 years. It's not quite as bad. What were you saying, John?
Nobody ever just says, you know what? You're right, and we're going to try and do better. It's an outrage. No, they have to call up and, quantify.
They take it personally.
Well, yeah.
Because I was talking about the human condition, not necessarily airline. Yeah. Last night it was doctors.
Yeah, well.
Even some talk show hosts have lapses. They don't always pay attention, John.
Well, you also proved your point that money is everything. He said, if we did all the checks that you'd like, the cost would be prohibitive.
Right.
Well, too bad.
That's what I say.
What's more important, a few bucks or somebody's life? You know, Jay, to get to a different topic that I was outraged at, the leeches were out in the street again today at City Hall demonstrating against George Pataki.
We're going to protest the cuts. We're going to protest the diminishing of services. We're going to protest the social services being taken away. We're going to protest the weather. We're going to protest the food. We're going to protest the air. We're going to protest the water. We're going to protest the clothing. We're going to protest people what we don't like. We're going to protest you until you go away. Wait a minute. If you go away, who we going to protest?
Yeah, everybody.
Maybe we won't protest you. You can still stick around so I have something to do.
Yeah, he found another way to keep the contributions coming in. But, these are people who are running scared, desperate, Jay, because the onus is going to finally be on them to perform and provide for themselves, and they can't face that. And I had to laugh at, Jay, Marion Berry in Washington, D.C., that town that's been controlled by liberals and Democrats for I don't know how long, it's going broke, which is not surprising, of course, when liberals are in charge of anything. He's had drastic cutbacks, and he's thinking of closing the last trauma unit there. Now, that could result in people dying in the streets and other people sleeping on subway gratings. Jay, where are all the demonstrations by the so-called students and liberals of about all these cutbacks that are going to hurt so many people in Washington, D.C. You see, when it's a liberal and a Democrat in charge, then there's no protest.
Wait a minute.
There's just silence.
Wait, that's a great idea. I think we should have Marion Barry run for mayor here.
Yeah,
Then there'll be no protest.
we have the equivalent.
I think it's unfortunate that we have to make all these cuts, but you see, the corporations have been bleeding the system for all these years, and that's why we's broke.
Yeah.
So I'm behind Mayor Barry, and we have to make these cuts. I think Mayor Barry's doing a wonderful job, almost as good as I'm doing as governor.
Yeah, those
I will help him make the cuts.
Those
As soon as President Jackson gives us the okay. Then the cuts is all right. Now, that's good cuts. I like them cuts. Especially big pieces of cold cuts.
Yeah. Those corporations that employ most of the people that he's always supporting, like AT&T. But, David Bonnier was also at it today. All these Democrats, Al Gore, they keep talking about the tax breaks for the rich again. That same old line from the 1980s, which isn't true. These tax breaks are going to benefit people up to, what, $95,000. So $95,000 is not rich, but David Bonnier said today, you can't rescue America by taking lunches away from school children. Well, that's lie number one.
No, you're right. That's a crass pitch to class envy and emotionalism. I think the dispute is the Republicans in the House want to give the $500 tax credit to families for each child up to an income of $200,000. And Bonnier wants to make it up to an income of $95,000. That I think is the difference there. Now, I might disagree with you. I am more, I feel that I'm in a line with the 102 House Republicans, John, who wanted to certify progress toward the deficit being resolved before they implemented the tax cuts. And I'll tell you why. The dollar is plummeting. That dollar, I remember, John, about a year ago, it was a major crisis when the newspapers wrote it up when the dollar fell below 100 yen. Now the dollar is pushing 80 yen.
Yeah.
In 1985, I think it took about 300 yen to buy a dollar. So in 10 years, our currency has lost about 70% of its value with respect to the yen. Now, one of the reasons why that dollar is plummeting is because the world has no faith in the viscous one in the White House, the lubricious one in the White House, the oily, what's that other word, slick one in the White House. And the other reason why the dollar has plummeted lately from about, I mean, it was just a few months ago when people had their head in their hands because the dollar broke through 100 yen. Now it's pushing 80. Well, that's part of it. And the other reason is that when this Congress was elected November 8th, a lot of these central banks across the world, across the globe, felt that there would now be a very serious effort made to put our financial house in order to, A, balance the budget, and to B, cut the spending necessary to balance the budget. But when these people see that the Congress wants to cut taxes by $200 billion at a time when the country is suffering a $5 trillion national debt and regular deficits of $200 billion, these central banks who want a stable United States get very edgy because they say, wait a minute, the Treasury is down in the hole $200 billion, and now they want tax cuts. They want to increase the amount by which the government is in debt. It just might be better, and I agree with the 102 Republicans in the House who solicited the Speaker on this matter, that I think it's better to show very clear progress toward resolving the budget deficit before incurring more debt in the form of a tax cut.
Well, I agree with you on one thing, and I disagree with you on another thing. I believe in tax cuts always bring more money into the Treasury. The 1980s show that, and I have the figures, and I've read them off to you more than once. And I can fax them to you that when you cut taxes, including the capital gains, which the Republicans want to do, it doubles the money coming into the Treasury.
No, maybe you're right. I don't know. I'm not enough of an expert, and a lot of people say what you say, and you might be right. Although on the surface, it's difficult for me to comprehend how it could. But maybe you're right. But I will tell you this. The central banks across the world don't interpret it the way you do, because if they did, the dollar would not be cascading in a free fall the way it is.
Well, we shouldn't raise the taxes or keep them this high just to make them feel comfortable. We should do what works physically, and that's cut taxes and put more money in people's pockets. But you're right about the deficit. Remember the big issue?
I think you can do both, John. I think you can. I like what the 102 Republicans said. I think it was a worthy compromise.
Well, some Republicans are mutton heads.
No.
Christy Whitman.
No, but some of these, even Bill Archer, I don't think he can be more conservative than Bill Archer. The simple truth is you can do both, but just show some progress toward paring the deficit first before you cut the taxes.
Yeah, I don't understand these Democrats. Remember during the campaign, the big issue was the deficit. It's going to kill our children and future generations. Now all of a sudden they fight against balancing the budget, those hypocrites.
He was full of baloney even during the campaign because the first thing he did, John, was the stimulus package. Early in this time of the year, in 1993, Clinton was trying to pass the stimulus package, and the only reason he didn't, which would have incurred even more billions and billions of dollars of debt, was because his own party saved them from it and voted it down. His own Democrat Congress refused to endorse the stimulus package, remember?
Yep.
All right, anyway, listen, if you want to call back later, feel free.
Okay.
If you're Harbury, this ultra-left-wing com simp, Jennifer Harbury, whose pre-adolescent fantasy, even though she herself is about 40-some-odd years old, her pre-adolescent fantasy was to make it with a real South American guerrilla, a real South American revolutionary. I could just see, she probably sees herself as Ingrid Bergman, and maybe Comandante Everardo was her Gary Cooper in For Whom the Bell Tolls. And now we have Robert Torricelli practically trying to close down the CIA on the basis of these false charges by an individual, a leftist-obsessed Jennifer Harbury, who is lost in her fictional romantic conception of a romance with a revolutionary. And on the basis of this woman's fantasies, the United States government is being pressed to abandon the CIA because a congressman in New Jersey has an ex-rock star's wife for his girlfriend. This is America in 1995. This is really astonishing to me. This is really, really, really astonishing to me. This is like, you know, the caller was right. The whole world is Geraldo. A hack congressman who happens to be on the Intelligence Committee has a girlfriend who is a Marxist Sandinista supporter from Nicaragua, who is the ex-wife of a rock star, a drug-taking rock star, with whom she might have taken drugs, for all I know. And a legitimate Latin American government in Guatemala executes a career murderer, a Castroite Marxist revolutionary whose career has been murder. He, in turn, is dispatched by legitimate government forces, and this boyfriend of the girlfriend, of the wife of the former rock star, on the basis of her urging, is now trying to close down the CIA because they might have supported a government trying to remain in power against the onslaught of Marxist revolutionaries. And Jennifer Harbury is the disloyal American whose fantasy life romance with this revolutionary has been the subject of investigation on 60 Minutes, People magazine, and of course the unabashedly sympathetic New York Times, who has written, I think, 3 editorials in support of Harbury and the communist guerrillas and Torricelli's effort to shut down the CIA on the basis of their having done their job in aiding this legitimate government, fighting a war against communist terrorism. I guess sleeping with Mick Jagger's old discards does strange things to a man. It could have been worse, though. Imagine what Torricelli might be capable of, folks, if he were sleeping with Jane Fonda. On WABC, this is Jay Diamond. And I would like to salute House Speaker Newt Gingrich, who demanded that Torricelli resign his seat on the House Select Intelligence Committee based on his support for the enemies of this country, the rebels, the communist rebels in Guatemala. So my bottom line opinion on this whole matter is to heck with this Shrike, this anti-American Shrike Harbury. God bless the CIA if they did help the Guatemalan government to get rid of this Comandante Everardo of the pretentious name and the faux Ernest Hemingway movement. God bless them. Godspeed. More power to the CIA. I agree with Speaker Gingrich. Torricelli has no business as a member of the Select Committee on Intelligence in the House of Representatives. In my view, he has no business in the House of Representatives altogether, but that's for his constituents to decide in the next election. And congratulations to Colonel Julio Roberto Alpirez for doing the just thing in the matter of Comandante Everardo. This is Jay Diamond on WABC.
Suddenly, I hear a lot of people, of course, Rush is following up on it. It's one of his pet peeves.
Hey, what would a call be?
Hey.
Hey, look at that. Rush is following up on it. Hey, otherwise it wouldn't be anything. Wouldn't be worth talking about.
Pardon me for taking a little credit. Once again, I've been vindicated. We have been vindicated, we conservatives, including yourself. An article in the Wall Street Journal of April 4th validates what we've been saying all along. The gap between black and white household earnings narrowed in the 1980s as household income for all New York households rose. 45% of white and 42% of black households earned between $25,000 and $75,000 annually, compared to 28% for white and 14% of black households.
Yeah, but the big story was a story that you told here, that for that time period, black earnings in Queens exceeded white earnings.
That's right. In those 10 years, the gap between black and white income decreased to only a 3% difference, and the black income rose 28% proportionately.
But in Queens, black income exceeded white income.
I think it's something like $300 difference.
That's right.
Blacks, but you know, Jay, this story of Robert Torricelli, you know this. He didn't need Bianca Jacka to show his anti-Americanism. This skunk has been a left-wing anti-American think for years. And when I see somebody in New Jersey with a Robert Torricelli bumper sticker, I don't know. You wonder what planet these people are on. And I love that headline. Here we go with the double standard again, Jay. The headline in the news today. Al D'Amato makes fun of Judge Ito. Jay, where was the news on April 11th when 1994, when Jeanette Cole called Hispanic pit bulls and imitated Asians by pulling up her eyes? There was no big headline then, was there, Jay? And here's another thing.
It might have been in the Daily Challenge. I don't know. I missed that day's issue.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, right?
No, maybe it was.
Get those conservatives.
You know, but that was pretty dumb what D'Amato did, don't you think?
Yeah, well, you know what it is, Jay? It's a shame that we can't make fun of anybody or be satirical in this country anymore. Look, it goes on every day. In everybody's office, people make fun of people. But if you're in public...
Well, no. Well, that's right. It's different if I do it. I mean, I even take heat. I think I did an Oriental or Hispanic accent the other night, and some girl called up protesting strenuously. But I do these voices all the time, and yet, even though it's part of my routine here, it's part of what I normally do, people still get offended if I still get in trouble for doing, even if it's a Jewish accent, or if it's a Hispanic accent, or if it's Al Sharpton. I still take a lot of heat, but I was surprised to see a senator do it. It was more unusual, particularly in as much as Lance Ito doesn't have a hint of any kind of a foreign accent.
You know, it just goes to show how spontaneous public figures can be and how human they can be. That's all it shows me. That girl who called you up and complained, I bet you when she went out with her girlfriends and had a couple of belts in her, she probably imitated some group that she disliked. The phony, the hypocrite.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Everybody is a phony. You know why? Because everybody's basically normal. There's nothing wrong with imitating somebody and making fun of somebody. Half of the comedians in Hollywood who would be outraged at this criticize Al D'Amato.
You're right.
They make their living doing this.
You're right, John.
I got to get my top hat.
That's my Spencer Williams Jr. imitation when he says to Tim Moore as the Kingfish, well, you know, my favorite, now I'm getting Amos and Andy from everybody.
Yeah.
I want to thank Mike Correnty. See, I almost forgot. I want to thank my great buddy, Mike Correnty, for sending me more episodes of Amos and Andy. Thank you, Mike. And my favorite part is when Andy becomes suspicious of the Kingfish. Hey, Kingfish, how come I got to go get this job? Wait a minute now. Don't you understand, Andy? If I get this job, who's going to be here to get you another job after you lose the first one? Then he looks at him and says, yeah, you're right, Kingfish. See, he talks him into it. So.
It sounds like your friend has a duplicating factory. Better check into him. Look out. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John of Staten Island. He gives the famous Frank from Queens thank you. How is Frank from Queens? That legendary caller.
No worries.
A
Been
friend,
busy.
a friend of all mankind. When is he getting out? Okay.
Out of trouble? Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey. Oh, he got me that time. But I had not paid taxes for 4 years. I answered it to everybody's satisfaction, in the government as well as in the private sector, that I had merely forgotten to pay my taxes. It's easy to see how I might have forgotten to pay my taxes. Why, it's coming up to tax day right now, and you'll see nothing in the media to remind anybody to pay their taxes. You won't see any stories between now and April 15th about tax cheats. You never see that this time of year. Federal government never tries to freak you out into paying your taxes by by making arrests in the few days before tax filing day. They never do that, so it's perfectly easy to understand, though I might have forgotten. But nonetheless, now they're coming after me, so I've decided to make a pilgrimage to Africa to ask for $1 million back from Winnie Mandela so that I can pay my back taxes, lest I end up in the federal penitentiary next to John Gotti, one of my very vociferous supporters in 1989. I could just see it now. There I am. Mrs. Mandela, it was lovely to have you in New York.
Yes, and it's lovely to have you here, Mayor Dinkins. Welcome to our newly liberated country.
Yes, that's fine and all that. I know you all look splendidly. There was something I came to talk to you about.
Oh, anything, Mr. Dinkins, anything. We appreciate your support and your fine work on behalf of Africans in Crown Heights.
Yes, but there's something I want to get off my chest before we go out on the Serengeti Plain to observe all the beautiful lush nature.
Yes. What is it, Mayor Dinkins?
You know that parade I gave you?
Oh, very, very lovely parade. I have some snapshots here.
Yes, why are all these pictures of your husband blacked out?
Well, it's just too emotional when I look at those. I've just scratched him out of the pictures.
Oh, why is Fabio standing where your husband used?
Oh, yes, Fabio is very sympathetic to the plight of our black South Africans.
Yes, that's fine and all that, but there was something else. I don't know how to say this.
Oh, yes, speak freely, Mayor Dinkins. We're both on the same side.
Yes, remember that parade, that $2 million parade? Well, I owe some more back taxes in America, and I need your $1 million back.
Mayor Dinkins, have I introduced you to my football team?
I'll be seeing you, Winnie.
Yes, would you like me to introduce you to my football team? Come here, team.
Oh, now, wait a minute now. Now, I just remembered I have an appointment back uptown. On WABC, this is Jay Diamond. Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, I wanted to address this new book by that muttonhead, Robert McNamara, who shows his continuing ignorance when he says that it was wrong for us to get involved in Vietnam. Now, I know you and I disagree on this, but what was wrong was the way that we fought the war. You know, I heard a couple of guests on with Bob this afternoon, and they didn't know what the heck they were talking about either. People still don't realize what we were dealing with when you're fighting communism. One guy said, well, it was a civil war, and we shouldn't have been involved. They're still using that same old line. Jay, when the communists invade your country, it's never a civil war. Communism is a worldwide revolution, and South Vietnam was just another step in the communist ladder towards world domination.
Well, I don't disagree with you. So far, I agree with everything you said. It wasn't. You're right. It's deliberately deceptive to refer to that as a civil war. It really wasn't a civil war. Their supplies were coming from Moscow and communist China. That's right.
Money, billions of dollars, advisors.
It wasn't like
the leader of the communist world.
It wasn't like the blue and the gray.
Of course not.
No. So I agree with you so far. What I don't agree with is I think at a certain point, they knew they really were trapped in there, and that LBJ just pursued it to save face,
Well,
which I think was a mistake.
It was a political, we shouldn't have fought it on a political basis. We should have let our army do it.
Well, you see, here's the thing, John. You were there. You are an actual Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, don't tell Hilly that.
But to have fought it to win would have required them to just level North Vietnam and then a good deal of South Vietnam, which had already been infiltrated and was filled with Viet Cong. The sad truth is the South Vietnamese forces were not committed. The North Vietnamese forces were, and historically they had fought the French. And although there was a hardline communist commitment from Hanoi, he was able to use the nationalist tendencies of the South Vietnamese against the Americans, even on the part of people who were not dedicated communists. The same people who threw out the French. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
He was able to portray this war as an anti-colonialist war to a lot of people who were not communist hardliners, and on that basis he was able to garner their support.
Well, Ho Chi Minh turned against us when we refused to throw the French out for him.
That's right.
And in fact, he got his education over here. But, you know, my basic philosophy has always been, Jay, that whenever you're fighting communism, you're doing it. Communism is the greatest evil of the 20th century. It's responsible for the death of over 100 million people.
Well, nobody's
there was a domino theory.
Nobody's arguing with you, but unfortunately for us, the people in the North were controlled by Ho Chi Minh. They were well financed, and so many people in the South were against the South Vietnamese government that we were essentially what we would have had to do would be nuke the North and occupy the South, and they weren't willing to make that commitment. And it's probably correct that they weren't. So they could wear them down, but they couldn't wear them down.
Well, you know, actually, the war in Vietnam was a victory for us. It was responsible eventually for the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union at that time was spending so much money and concentrating.
Well, Afghanistan didn't hurt either.
Yeah.
That was helpful. That was their Vietnam. John, the time catches us, but if you want, call me back later. On WABC, this is Jay Dyer. The leader of the secessionist movement, I see him on his noble steed, Traveler. I think that's your steed's name, isn't it?
Hey, Jay.
Traveler.
Yeah, well, we're going to make the big break from the #1 liberal state in the Union. Well,
that's right, John. Are you going to form your own regiment?
I already have it. We're way ahead of the game.
I'm sure many of the stout-hearted men on Staten Island will follow you into battle across the Hudson River, across New York Harbor.
Yeah, yeah, you'll be right in there with us.
I can just see it now. John's Hudson River campaign. It'll be studied like Stonewall Jackson's Valley campaign in the Shenandoah. But that's true. I will have a decision to make comparable to the confusion that perplexed General Lee. Who will I go with? Will I be loyal to New York City or loyal to my friends on Staten Island?
Jay, as the great General Patton said, don't worry about it. You'll see, when you see your duty, you'll know what to do.
That's right.
But, you know, Jay, to follow through on what you were saying about the double standard that exists in this country, I'm glad you read that article about the hateful remarks from the left. But, you know, you and I, we conservatives, have been saying these types of things. For years we've been talking about the double standard when it comes to liberals versus conservatives. I don't know where these reporters have been. They could have written that article 15 years ago. We've been talking on the air for that long. You know, I'm telling you, Jay, many of we conservatives should have our own talk shows because we were there long before these people. We have much more insight. But I'm glad she wrote it anyway. But, you know, I wanted to speak to you, Jay, about these housing projects that were blown up in, was it Jersey City, the Christopher Columbus housing projects? Supposedly they flattened them about a week ago because they were so crime-ridden. First of all, Jay, I'd like to know what the size of a housing project has to do with whether crime is... It's not the house that commits the crime. It's the type of people that live in these houses. And there was another reason for blowing that house up, Jay. If these houses were called the Che Guevara housing projects, they would have found a reason to rehabilitate those housing projects and have a reopening of them. But no, this was an opportunity to get rid of the name Christopher Columbus. This is all contrived, and they think we're so stupid. that we can't see what they're up to. But remember, I forget who it was. There was, speaking of this double standard and what these lefties have been doing with their horrible statements. There was a woman on the Congress, on the floor of the Congress, who pulled up her eyes, imitating Asians.
No.
Yeah.
When was this?
Last year. And it was the same woman who called Hispanics pit bulls. And
she's a congresswoman?
I do have her name.
Well, give me her name.
Yeah, I can give you her name. I have it in my files.
Oh, you keep files? You keep special files?
On everything.
Oh.
I don't let these people get away with anything.
Well, maybe you can call back with the name at another time then.
Yeah.
All right?
Oh, sure.
All right. Listen, was there anything else, or was that it?
That's it for now, but I wanted to reply maybe later on to some things Chris was saying to me.
Well, you can, but I have to tell you, we're going to have Christina Jeffrey at 11, and then I think for the bulk of the night, I'm going to conduct the Help Jay Diamond with His Portfolio Investment Seminar, which I started last night. But I will ask the audience.
Oh, here it is, Jay.
Oh, okay.
April 11th, 1994. Jeanette Cole called Hispanics pit bulls and imitated Asians by pulling up her eyes.
Jeanette Coles?
Jeanette Cole, yeah.
Oh, yeah. What was her title? Something with the education department. I think she was an education advisor in the transition, but I don't know. Maybe she'll say she just got a little gnat or she had a sty or something. All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. No, I really am late.
Okay.
On Hemingway fantasy of a treasonous American citizen by the name of Jennifer Harbury, who is lamenting the fact that her Comandante Everardo, that is a pseudonym that he invented to make himself sound more romantic to appeal to the schoolgirl fantasies of this idiot, this twit, Jennifer Harbury. He is upset that after a career of launching murderous attacks on the legitimate Guatemalan government, the Guatemalan government beat him in a gunfight and dispatched him. And so, good riddance to Comandante Everardo, and hopefully it will be the House Intelligence Committee waving good riddance to Congressman Robert Torricelli and his beloved Bianca Jagger. Maybe Torricelli can become a rock star. He has to lose about 60 or 70 pounds first, but maybe something or some enzyme will help him to do that. Hello, John.
Hey, Jay. How you doing?
Yeah.
Jay, I'm glad I'm shocked that somebody in the Times would write that the American left in this country stabbed our military and our country in the back. That's exactly what happened, those two-bit little worms. And they're still at it today. But, Jay, to get back to what you were talking about, the way that our culture has been allowed to deteriorate. Well, Jay, that's happened for one reason. We know what the reason is. It all started in the 1960s when, for some stupid reason, we became two nations. We started to have this insipid, misplaced sense of guilt about race. And we allowed other cultures to smother ours, and we've allowed double standards to take place when it comes to crime, standards, and rules, and common sense. Janet Reno herself, when she took office, said, when a black commits a crime, we must take their background into consideration. But we must take the rule and what it says into consideration. That's what she should take into consideration. We allow rituals that are absolutely barbaric to go on because it's part of certain cultures. We make excuses for crime. We don't demand that people who come to the United States know our language first, if they're going to come here permanently. And that's what's going on. Look at this nonsense about, look how Bill Clinton turns to the black community. He says the other day, when talking about affirmative action, stand up for those affirmative action programs that have worked, but don't do it in such a way as to give the other side the political victory they're looking for. First of all, Jay, the phrase other side is akin to saying the enemy. So he's calling his fellow Americans the enemy for the sake of pacifying certain groups in this country. This is what's divided us. Now, this is the fraud who at the same time speaks of cooperation with the Republicans and who said after the November 8th election, the American people are tired of political infighting. Since then, he's done nothing but knock the Republicans. But, this was a liberal brainstorm, and everything has manifested itself with the rise of liberalism, and since we started to have two nations in this country. There was no successful affirmative action programs. That's just an attempt by the left to justify their insipid idea of affirmative action, which turned out to be a total failure. But this is what we have going on in this country. That's why our culture has been allowed to deteriorate, Jay.
Speaking of that, have you seen this game that I was talking about, this satanic card game? I don't remember.
I can imagine.
It's called Magic. Well, I'm looking for, I wrote down the name of it, but I can't find it now. I had it in front of me. But I thought maybe you would have seen it because I have a special interest in those things. I think there is more of these satanic cults going around than we see on television. But this is a card game that young people play, and it's called Magic the Gathering. And it's a satanic card game. I was hoping you'd see, because I have a feeling it might be out in Staten Island. I mean it. I'm not kidding.
Yeah?
It was out in Jersey, and I think it was...
Staten Island.
Satan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now they got you doing it. Even you have gone over to the other side.
Yeah. No, I like to humor them. You know, there was a caller before who played the class warfare again. He said the reason that the Republicans and the conservatives are picking on people on welfare and poor people is because people who are unsuccessful have to have someone to beat up on. Well, Jay, in a 22-year survey conducted between 1972 and 1993 by the University of Chicago National Opinion Research Center, category, income, Democrats are less affluent than the average Republican. The average family income of Democrats is 25% below that of the average family income for Republicans. In the category mental outlook and...
John,
health?
John, where do you derive your statistics? Where do you come by these statistics, John?
I just told you.
Okay.
The University of Chicago National Opinion...
Is that right? And where did you hear about the University of Chicago? Where did you hear about that survey, John?
Yeah, by Lee Siegelman in the September
Never mind.
1995 edition of the Washington Post. Yeah, see, I don't just tell you to check it out. I have my sources ready to go. And in all the other categories, Republicans had it all over Democrats. So this explains their class warfare because they're the ones that are unsuccessful. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Yeah, Jay, I have to laugh at that. She was a racist, that's all. They even make excuses.
Who is a racist?
This woman you...
Oh, come on now. Come on, John.
She's even making excuses for illegitimate children. That's how they entertain themselves.
Wait a minute. Add 6 to the list. You have not procreated yourself yet either.
Well, I have enough headaches.
There you go. There's 6 of us who've not... This is getting serious. And wait.
Yeah, it sure is. We're being overrun. You know, Jay, she says they need self-esteem. You know how you get self-esteem? You get your butt in the library and you learn something that'll help you get a good job, and that's how you get self-esteem. What nonsense.
I think I would make you coordinator of a youth program.
Never mind. I want to get to the serious topics here. Don't divert me.
Oh.
You know, she says, don't concentrate on the bad things going on in society. There's so many good things. You have to concentrate on the bad things going on in our society.
Well, I take your call, don't I?
That's what hurts society. It isn't the good things that hurt us. How are you going to fix the things that are killing us if you don't concentrate on the bad things? You know, Jay, this so-called jewels in the crown game, don't kid yourself.
Just don't say Jews in the crown.
No, you did that already.
Never mind that.
You're a troublemaker. But this is a contrived... thing that's going on to cause havoc in our society. One of the ways that you can cause the downfall of America is by illegitimacy. It's one of the things in the overall plan of the left wing in this country and the people who have gotten a hold of the so-called downtrodden in our society. They encourage them to do these things because they know it'll hurt America. And I wanted to get to a little bit on Vietnam, Jay.
I want to hear it, but I think that you, me, Sleedwell, Malsberg, Booty, and Kochopley should embark on an immediate procreation program.
Well, I don't think there's anything very funny about it. I think our society, this is one of the most serious things that's killing us. And these creeps who are doing this should be rounded up and thrown in a camp and kept there for the rest of their lives so they can't destroy this country. I consider them a walking disease and an incurable disease. And just to show, Jay, how insipid some of the excuses...
Happy Good Friday to you, too, John.
It would be a Good Friday if we
All right, John,
some of this stuff.
easy. Come on.
I don't find anything funny about it, Jay. I don't know why you're making jokes about this.
Well, I don't know. I'm in a mood to joke around. I like to have fun sometimes. I'm sure you'll forgive me for it.
I don't find a sense of humor in those who are out to destroy us.
All right. Anyway, I appreciate it.
Wait, I wanted to say something about Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
Just to show how insipid some of the excuses were that we used to try to get out of Vietnam. You'll recall the anti-war forces in this country saying, why should we fight for a corrupt government like South Vietnam? Meanwhile, so many of those same forces think that we should be very friendly with our so-called friendly neighbor to the south. There's more corruption going on in Mexico. Every deal that's made is made by bribery.
What about Haiti?
Yeah, well, what about when we were fighting communism in South America?
Well, there you go. You're right.
They said those people don't care what kind of government they have. As long as they have a bowl of beans in their belly, they're happy. All of a sudden, they're concerned about the type of government. These hypocrites. All right, thanks.
All right. John from Staten Island, now up to... When Johnny goes marching home. I've got to get a record of that so I can play it for the legendary Vietnam veteran, hero of the jungles of Vietnam, the man who successfully dodged punji holes for 12 months in the humidity, but never boasted about it, John of Staten Island.
Hey, thanks, Jay.
Hi, John.
Hey, Bert, let me tell you something. This is some sort of revelation. This is. You won't hear from the racist rabble who usually call your show because, Jay, they're not going to express sympathy or empathy for those they need to hate and use as scapegoats. This revelation of yours disintegrates their whole agenda. They're not going to admit that this proves what we've been saying all along, that blacks were not singled out just because they were black, that it proves that any people of that era could have fallen victim to what was a product of its time, slavery. What they'll do, Jay, is what they usually do when something like this takes the wind out of their sails. They'll just remain silent until the uncomfortable facts are forgotten, and I hope they're not.
Well, John, I want to appoint you as a one-man Mercury spreading the message to other talk shows of the revelations that came out here tonight.
You know, Jay, just to make an analogy,
In Washington, D.C., blacks are killing each other at a rate where they're going to become extinct in that district in a few years. During the period of slavery, the black population in America tripled. According to the book, American Slavery, and I'm not sure if I have the years right, but it is included in the title. I think the years are 1811 or 10 to 1860. So, actually, what an analogy that is. It's a tough way to make an analogy.
Well,
when you
to talk perfectly seriously, of course it's unjust. It's so blatantly apparent that it's unjust for one human being to assert domination, physical domination over a whole group of people, to enslave other people. But it is important to understand that slavery has not afflicted one race, but that, as Thomas Sowell says, all people have enslaved other people and have themselves been enslaved. This is a fact of the human condition, a fact of life on this war-weary and strife-ridden planet.
That's absolutely. And, to follow up on what you were saying, I want a curriculum of inclusion established in every educational institution in this country. Why wasn't this history of oppression committed against white Europeans taught in our schools? All these years, Jay, they've stolen our heritage. Thanks, Jay.
All right.
Jay, leave it to an anti-American skunk with the name of Abdullah to criticize his own country at a time when we're the victim. Jay, you ever notice that the left in this country always uses this desperate attempt at the moral equivalency to further their left-wing agenda? The fact is, 99% of the time, if not 100, there is no moral equivalency by what happens as a result of our action. Because usually, if innocent women and children are killed, which they will always be in a war or a military action, we're not singling them out looking for them to kill, deliberately to cause havoc.
these types of dogs who bombed this building in Oklahoma were looking to use women and children to further their agenda. And I have to, we never seek out the innocent. It happens in cases of war, as it always will, but we usually make amends for it.
You made only one mistake. You said that this is Abdullah's country. This
That's
is not,
right.
No,
I know
this
what
is
you
not Abdullah's country. He is a fifth columnist. He is like those soldiers hidden in the Trojan horse.
It's only his country on paper, not in his heart.
Well, that's why I offered to pay his passage, and not only his passage, but to support him in Iraq for the first 6 months.
Well,
and I'll give him the cash as he's out, and I'll wave him goodbye from the dock.
But, Jay, our enemies don't only come from across borders. Many of them are within the borders of the United States, born and raised here. And did you notice, Jay, where they happened to spot one of these guys who were trying to escape? Across the border to Mexico. See, our friendly neighbor to the south, Mexico. I've been saying all along, Jay, that Mexico is not our friend. It should be invaded and occupied by the United States because it is the place where every illegal activity on this earth is allowed to come through and destroy the United States little by little. Drugs, criminals, illegal invaders. And I don't know why we insist on calling them our friendly neighbor to the south. It's about time we did something about them, too. They're just as bad as any Middle Eastern enemy.
All right, thank you very much. When you hear hoofbeats, look for horses, not zebras.
Right. And, Jay, I heard some liberals say, oh, they're so shocked that this could have been white people. Yeah, you're damn right we're shocked. You know why? Because it happens so little on ours.
No, I'm not shocked, because I've seen I know the nature, human nature. I don't know about white nature or black nature or Arab nature. I am not surprised because I've seen white people do despicable things. I'm not at all surprised, and I know what so-called humanity is capable of. And right now I'm feeling very cynical about all humanity, myself included. But I have never fostered the illusion that Anglo-Saxon men are above degrading, illicit, disgraceful, despicable, cruel behavior. I'm not shocked.
No, but whites are being lumped in one group today as white, angry males.
John, it might be a good idea for you yourself to dwell on the fact that children are dead, and maybe this isn't the best time to make racial and political hay. Maybe this is not the right night to let political hay out of it, right? I can only speak for myself, and you can only speak for yourself. I can't, because somebody else does something that's despicable is not a reason for you to get down into the slime yourself.
Don't think that you will impress these people.
I don't want to impress them.
They will never be your friend.
No, listen to me. I don't want to impress them, but I have to be strong enough. I have to be strong enough to stick by my own code and my own values, even when somebody who I like and who has been loyal to me in the past is, in my view, diminishing himself. All right? Have a good night. On WABC, me to get people to respond here? Okay. Here's a scene from the upcoming production of Indiana Sharpton and the Jewel in the Crown from New Wine, I Mean Cinemas. Now, here's the thing. Remember the Jewels in the Crown. This has all been forgotten in the tremendous fallout from the destructive, the terrorist blast, the tragic killing of those people in Oklahoma City. Nonetheless, the world does go on, and we're forced to deal with it. Christine Todd Whitman was condemned roundly by Wayne Bryant in New Jersey and many others for being racist when she simply repeated what she had been told in an AIDS shelter, that there were certain youths who were involved in a competition with one another to see who could impregnate the most teenage girls with babies. And that's called the Jewels in the Crown. And so the great Barry Smith and I have been working on a new magnum opus, a multimedia play to rival the play we did at Christmas time. And this will not just be a 1 or 2 minute skit. This will be a long adventure, Indiana Sharpton and the Jewel in the Crown. Here's a scene from that upcoming production. Just a preview of coming attractions.
Let us see a menu. Thank you. Club sandwich. Patty melt? I don't want it. Say, bartender, what you got around here worth eating?
I myself rather prefer the waitress sandwich.
Waitress sandwich? You got any ethnic food?
We've got the Mexicali entree.
What's that?
I feel it is a delightful combination of Spanish meatballs swimming in a luscious California béarnaise.
You say swimming? Nah, too spicy. What else you got?
I have cooking right now on the steam pot South Central pot roast.
What's that?
I said South Central pot roast.
What's that?
A choice cut of USDA prime filet, burned beyond all recognition and smothered in white sauce.
Listen, dummy, I'm a very important man around here. Ain't you got nothing a little more appropriate to a man of my obvious stature?
Actually, for you especially, I could whip up the famous Tawana burger.
What's that?
Tawana burger is a half pound of plain ground rump roast served raw.
What's that come with?
Nothing. You put your own stuff on it. All right, that and more when we have the full production of Indiana Sharpton and the Jewel in the Crown.
And I didn't find any clause in there about abusing Jay Diamond. It doesn't say in there, even in one sentence, that I have to sit here and be gratuitously abused by dirtbags calling in. That is terrific. I brought a copy of my contract, and I put that clause in the machine, and I duplicated it. I'm going from Barry turning into Pat Buttram. It's a fine line, but now I'm turning into Pat Buttram. That's what happens when you do Farber for too long. Sooner or later, Gene Autry's going to run right in the door.
All right, but that's what I say. You see, it doesn't say in my contract that I have to stay on the phone with any caller for 30 minutes and have them call me names. In case you haven't realized, I'm much above that, much too good for that. So,
Jay?
Hello, John.
Jay? You know that cop-out line, that liberals, that line that blacks are the victims of most crime. Now, that is a line for liberals who hate to blame blacks for anything. And, in fact, it puts blacks in a worse light, because all it's telling me is that it's mostly blacks who are committing the crime. I mean, it means the crimes are being committed in black neighborhoods, and if blacks are mostly the victim, it has to be blacks who are committing the crimes. And, Jay, did you hear the insipid remark by Hazel Dukes? You know that fellow that was stopped at Grand Central Station and frisked?
Yes, that's what's his name? Do you know his name? Graves?
You know, I'll get his name tomorrow.
Well,
I forgot.
that's all right. Go ahead.
But anyway, she says, well, it just proves that it's open season on blacks. Did she say it was open season on whites when she fired as many as she could from OT?
Well, this is it. I think that this cult of ethnicity is the most destructive force never mind in our politics, but certainly in our culture and the way we approach each other. With respect to Eunice Trotter, I read this story for a reason. Actually, I cannot understand why people would countenance or even accept the concept of black-on-black crime. In my view, when she says, how can these brothers do this to their own, what she's saying is she can't understand how brothers, italicized, could do this to other blacks, but it seems that she could easily fathom how brothers could do it to people who are not black. Yeah, that's what I don't understand. Why is it that this woman, who can't be too stupid if she's a reporter, could be so blind to her own prejudice?
Yeah, but this nonsense of that phrase, the brothers, the only brothers we have are the ones our mothers and fathers gave us. The brothers who sell drugs to one another and knock each other off like we cook French fries. No, that is a line that a lot of racist blacks use to unite themselves mentally against what they consider as the real enemy.
No, but in this woman, it's more understanding. She is not speaking in a strident way. See, if the tone of her column were strident, how could these... She doesn't do that. She is showing me that she's really blind to her own thoughts. She doesn't seem like a bad woman. In fact, she recommends more police. She's outraged that this SOB could do this to her. And nonetheless, she specifically concentrates on the fact that she is black, rather than on the fact that he did it to another person. In my view, in the best of all possible worlds, she would be offended that this individual committed this crime, violated another human being. But even this woman, who seems not to be a malicious person, seemingly has accepted the idea, accepted the notion of blacks doing this to other people, but she can't come to grips with the fact that a black could do it to a black. Yeah. Well, why doesn't she demand that this individual have empathy with the human race rather than merely have empathy with her?
Yeah, no, it's an outrage. I think she's very naive also.
Right.
You take a look at much of her community, she talks about wanting more police officers. Why? So they can be belted with the bricks and verbal abuse when they come to arrest another black, because a lot of the racist blacks in these neighborhoods would rather the criminal go free than have the system arrest them, or the oppressive enemy, namely the police, arrest one of their criminal brothers.
You know the thing about you that I like? A lot of people denounce you as being strident, as being harsh. Yeah, and you are hard-hitting, but you know, you're an intelligent man, and even if people don't agree with you, you never play games. You get to the point, and you speak with energy. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy the repartee with you, John. Unlike, I mean, you take a guy who begins the evening with me, I still can't understand what he's blaming me because I compared the life of the mugger who fed himself negative propaganda to the great achieving life of W.L. Nauman, who believed in this country and himself and turned himself into a captain of industry, even though he originated in humble surroundings.
Well, you know what it is, Jay? I'll tell you exactly what it is. These are people who have something against you to begin with. So when they think they can get something on you to sap you or to get annoyed at you about, they'll latch onto it. And when it turns out to be a big flop, and you bring it to their attention, and they're shown to be, punitive, then it backfires on them, and they look like an idiot.
Thank you, John.
I'll talk to you.
Have a good night.
Glenn Harris, the 33-year-old so-called teacher who ran away with that 15-year-old, he is going to be allowed to plea bargain his case. Lou Alcindor, inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and these black racists and rapists of that woman under the Coney Island boardwalk, the smiling rapists, by the way, have been allowed to plea bargain their case. They're going to get less of a sentence than they deserve for raping that poor woman under the Coney Island boardwalk. What a racist country this is, Jay, huh? Blacks have it so difficult in this country. You know, the women's livers.
Well, I'll tell you something. Those bums from under the boardwalk, that is a disgrace. And I will tell you something. It subverts the idea that justice can be done. Because the judge, maybe the judge should be subjected to the kind of treatment that poor woman got. But nobody cares. Thanks, John.
Well, I have to agree with you. I think Glenn Harris, as you know, he's had troubles in the past. He hasn't been too successful.
Right. I knew you'd see it the right way.
Absolutely. This man deserves it. He should be invited to City Hall. He's an absolute hero. He cared about this guy. And now they want to make him a villain?
Right.
No, this man deserves a medal.
See,
he cared about that poor girl that was having troubles, and he put all his troubles aside. For once, he didn't think about himself.
See, I knew you're a fair person. You don't let ideology stand in the way of justice.
No, you know that if a black man deserves criticism if he does something wrong, I wouldn't hesitate to criticize him.
Right.
This is a great black hero. He's an American black hero.
God bless you, John.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Very right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You heard it from Jane from Staten Island. And,
excellent topic. This is really dangerous, you know. But, Jay, this is typical of the liberal sneaky tactic. You see, as you know, Jay, the left in this country, they know that if this question ever went to the ballot box, it would lose in a flash. It would be overwhelmingly defeated. So what do they do again? They go to the liberal courts to get their way. This is the tactic that liberals have been using for years. They never win at the voting ballot, so they depend on these liberal judges. And the thing that gets me, Jay, is this is a constant lie. Anyway, that this lawyer is this suit, this nonsense that blacks are more likely and Hispanics are more likely to go to jail than whites. According to the U.S. Justice Department, a study of homicide in the 75 largest counties in the United States showed that 16% of whites eligible for capital punishment were condemned, 10% of blacks eligible for capital punishment were condemned. The average prison terms were 16 years for whites, 15 years for blacks. So this is just another attempt for them to get their way. And Jay, you also mentioned something else that I wanted to address before. There was a caller, Mike, who compared you, and you mentioned this before. He compared you to Julius Stryker, of course, and Rush Limbaugh. This is always the way of off-base liberals. They use this psychological attack of the moral equivalency where there is no comparison, but they hope that there's a lot of gullible people out there that will be impressed. And, of course, all right-wingers are fascists.
Well, I remember a couple of weeks ago, John, a guy called me up and he likened Sharpton and Jesse Jackson to Hitler. And I'm not a big admirer of either Sharpton or Jesse Jackson, but because I have a responsibility to the truth, and because I have ethics, I said, wait a minute, I don't agree with the political viewpoint of Sharpton or Jackson, but to the best of my knowledge, they both have not been convicted of mass murder and war crimes. And the guy said, yeah, you're right, Jay. But notice this fellow who talked about me and Limbaugh and Bob being like Julius Stryker went totally unchallenged.
Of course.
Thank you, Marjan. I appreciate the call. I really do. On WABC, it's Jay Diamond.
Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, damn it. Reverend Al, I got a little problem you might help me with. You see, last year I told some damn fool Jew talk show host I had absolute proof that Tawana Brawler was raped by a Hasidic Bar Scout troop in Monticello.
That sounds right to me.
Well, he didn't believe me because he's a racist, damn it. So I promised I'd send him all my documentation in its unexpurgated form.
In its expurgatory form?
No, you damn fool. Unexpurgated, from the Greek. It means leave it up in there, damn it. Anyway, I promised to send him the proof by the end of the week, but I got the evidence mixed up with my rent check.
So what's the problem? What's your trouble?
So now my damn Jew landlord wants to evict me for not paying my rent. So I was wondering if maybe my planets were out of alignment.
What makes you think it might be the planets?
I read it in a book, damn it, down at the Schoenberg Library. All you have to do is go up to see it. You could look it up, but you're too damn lazy. It said my life would come to turmoil whenever Uranus is rising.
Oh, you got a problem with Uranus, all right.
So it isn't all in my head.
Not exactly. You see, your problem isn't just in your head. It's also in your anus. In other words, you got your head up your anus, and you got to cut that out. You know, unexpurgated.
To be continued. On WABC, this is Jay Diamond.
Finger is pointed at them, and that's what they don't like.
But you see, they would like it to fail because that will give them more grist for their communist agitation. That's all they're about is
agitation. They're going to be left behind, Jay, because I have a Puerto Rican friend of mine at work who told me about an article in a Hispanic paper over the news over the weekend, and it showed how Hispanics in America are doing very well now in bypassing a lot of other minority groups. And if blacks don't wake up, a lot of blacks don't wake up, these troublemakers, and, realize that America is the place where you have an opportunity to make
John, sorry to interrupt you, the communists have been somewhat successful in manipulating a large portion of the black population. But hopefully with this poll taken by Newsday showing that many blacks are contemptuous of affirmative action, and with the election in November 8th, the communist propaganda is being repulsed. But my advice to people to citizens of all colors, is to wire or phone or fax their congressional representatives and senators and demand a resurrection, a revivification of the House Un-American Activities Committee.
By the way, is Joe Sexton white?
I don't know his color. Thank you very much.
Okay.
On WABC.
Jay, I disagree with you as far as those so-called Nation of Islam thugs. But I'll get to that in a second. I want to address a couple of other things. Firstly, Congressman Brown, I think he's from Massachusetts, said maybe we should reopen Pennsylvania Avenue because Bill Clinton now believes in a Republican plan to get the country straightened out again.
What was the connotation of that statement?
Well, I guess by that he means let's give someone else a chance to get a better shot at the president because he disagrees with liberals now.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it.
Speech, Jay?
Pardon me?
Isn't this left-wing hate speech?
I thought it was. I thought it was really very, very vulgar.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show the disposition that liberals get into when you dare to disagree with them. These people-loving, kind-hearted belief in these people who believe in the First Amendment, so they say, until you dare to disagree with them.
Oh, you mean like the people who were so kind to Anita Hill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What hypocrites and phonies. And these homosexuals that are upset because these White House or these Secret Service men dare to do what they think is necessary to protect them and their families from AIDS, because I don't believe anything any homosexual says, or the liberals who back them up, and in many cases, they're one and the same.
Please, now you sound silly. You don't believe everything any homosexual says. Any homosexual, John?
Any.
Not even one?
Well, maybe Ed Koch.
Wait. You don't know that Ed Koch is homosexual. In fact, I don't think he is. But the point I'm trying to stress, John, is that I think that you're saying something for effect that you don't necessarily mean.
Well, I think what happens is, you see, the homosexuals are upset at what happened at the White House, Jay, because they don't like anything that reminds everyone that they're the ones that are mainly responsible for AIDS being a deadly disease. So they try and hide it. And anything that's drug out
Oh, you mean, you're talking about the gloves they put on?
Yeah.
Well, maybe people listening don't know. So why don't you explain to the world what you're talking about?
Well, when they, a group of homosexuals who were elected to public office visited the White House over the weekend, the Secret Servicemen there wore blue rubber gloves to protect themselves when they had to search them.
Well, yeah, that's right.
So they didn't like this. We're supposed to hide the fact that AIDS could be caught, or if somebody has a cut on their hand or whatever. No, they don't give a damn about these Secret Servicemen's lives or the possibility that they could catch it if they have a cut on their hand or whatever. I don't believe anything that these people or say anything to keep the fact that they're responsible for AIDS out of the limelight.
Well, listen, I think it is kind of... I thought it was stupid to put on the rubber gloves, to tell you the truth. I mean, how do you know, where you're working, how do you know that there's no homosexual there? You might shake hands with him. It's ridiculous. I mean, believe me, I'd be the last person in the world to say, no, you should make believe you couldn't catch it if you could catch it. I think that people have an interest in not getting AIDS. But I think that if it could be caught from a handshake, there'd be a lot more people dead of it already.
But I'm not, well, the numbers are growing. And look, Jay, I don't care what they tell me. I'm going to do what I think is necessary to protect myself.
Well, then why don't you wear gloves wherever you go? You don't know who's on. Here they happen to know it was a homosexual. Let's say it was a group, wait a minute, let's say it was a group visiting the president of finance ministers from all over the world, and out of 100 people coming to the White House, let's say there were 3 there or 4 who were homosexuals.
You'd have to wear gloves constantly.
Well, no, but the thing is,
I'd have to put myself in a plastic bag.
When I definitely know that they're going to be around me, I'm going to do something that I think is necessary to protect.
Wait a minute, no, but you're wrong, because if you don't know, then you have to make the tacit assumption that they are in order to really be safe.
Well, the fact is that these were specific homosexuals.
No, what I'm saying,
who came.
No, you're not dealing with what I said to you. If you're really afraid to get AIDS, John, if you're really afraid you could get it from shaking hands, and you really think you could, then you've got to assume that everybody is a homosexual and has it, even when you don't know. So it's meaningless for you to tell me, oh, but here I knew, so I put on the gloves. But if I went into the subway, or I went to a convention, or I went to an American Legion rally, I wouldn't because, well, I don't know. Well, what if you don't know? Let's say you were in Zaire. As improbable as it is that you would be in Zaire, let's say you were in Zaire during the Ebola outbreak. Unless you saw somebody bleeding from their skin, you would assume that they don't have it, and you'd go over and share their tea?
I don't go around frisking people all day long who may be gay. These guys were.
No, but you could be in close proximity to people.
I happen to think it was dumb.
I do. And I don't believe that you say you don't believe anything a homosexual tells you.
I don't. I don't trust any of them. They'll tell you anything. I don't give blood to this day until they find a cure for AIDS. I don't believe what they tell me, that you can't catch AIDS by giving blood. I just don't believe them. I think that they're desperate enough to get what they want, that they'll tell you anything, and they're vicious and cold and hate, or most of them, as far as I'm concerned. Not all, but most.
Well, then you just changed it.
What?
Well, once you say not all but most, it sounds a little easier to take.
No, but the thing is,
but when you say that,
I believe there are so many, I'm going to do what I think is necessary to prevent it as much as I can. You can never be 100% sure, but when I know they're going to be around me, I'm going to make sure that I do take as much precautions as I can at that moment.
So do I understand this as meaning that you don't intend to be at the Gay Pride Parade this year?
No, I will let the politicians handle that one.
I wonder
I'd like to see Giuliani at the parade with gloves on.
I was just going to say... You stole my gag, my brother.
But
you did.
One other thing, Jay.
That's right.
I'm against what these so-called... First of all, I don't call these characters Nation of Islam. I call them the COA. The cult of... Or COI. The cult of Islam.
You could say that. I won't get in trouble for that.
No, these characters shouldn't be hired for anything. They're a bunch of anti-American, anti-white, anti-Semitic racists. Whoever hired them...
And I agree with you, but I think they had a great idea in administering corporal punishment to these alleged thieves.
Because if these kids that broke into that lawn were white, they did it to those kids because they were white, and this was an opportunity to defeat people who they
I didn't even know that.
No, but if they were black...
Wait a minute. Well, what were... I didn't know. I assumed... I can't say... Well, I assumed they were black because I didn't think the Nation of Islam really would hit white children.
Oh, I think that they would take every opportunity they could to do anything they could to white people.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
And if they were black, it explains...
But I got news for you. Michael Fay was white, and I think they did correctly in caning him. I just think the caning is a good idea. Good for Singapore and good for America.
Well, the point is that this was a bunch of white guards who beat up a bunch of black kids in a mall. We'd have a second revolution.
That's where I feel that there was no racial angle here. My assumption was that the Nation of Islam would not cane white children. Maybe it was a wrong assumption, but I still feel pretty secure that they wouldn't do that to white children they thought were stealing. Maybe I'm wrong.
Were they ready to beat up anybody who tried to get into the slave theater?
No. Thank you.
All right.
On WABC.
I've been listening to WABC for the last 2 or 3 years. Haven't we been saying all along that the 1980s were not the decade of greed and decadence, and that rich people alone did not do well in the 1980s and everybody didn't? No one would believe us, would they, Jay? Now these sources are coming from liberal. These figures are coming from liberal sources. And to follow up on that, Jay, guess what? In the Washington Post today, they had an article about what really caused all the deficits that we've got to pay for now. They said it started in the 1960s, from the decade of, a number of decades, like Bill Clinton said in his speech the other night, but from 1970 through 1982, when we established all of these pro-social programs and all of these entitlement programs that we can't turn back today. It said in the 1970s, we had 1/3 less income, 1/3 less wealth in this country, and we thought we had mastered the art of continuous economic growth, but we had not. Meanwhile, we had established all of these problems of these entitlement programs and big pensions and all of that, and that's what's caused our problems today. As a matter of fact, the 1980s weren't even mentioned. All of this occurred before the 1980s, all of these programs that now we're stuck with forever, and that's what's caused our problems. As a matter of fact, they gave credit to the Reagan team that put together the tax cuts because it lowered the tax rates back to where they should have been, they said. So, as you know, Jay, in time, we're always vindicated, aren't we? And I heard that vicious Carl this afternoon talking about how no one wants to debate Jesse Jackson. Well, they should have listened to the Jay Diamond show about 2 years ago when you had him on for 2 hours, and you made such an idiot out of him that he looked for an excuse to prove you were racist and just get off the air before you embarrassed him further. So congratulations on both ends, Jay.
All right. Thank you, John.
Right.
Thank you very much. It seems...
Oh, hi, Jay.
John, old buddy.
Jay, tonight, most 99% of the time, you're right on the money, and tonight is one of those nights. I think I know how you feel when it comes to this flag burning issue. You know, there's something about the opposition to this amendment coming from people like Gary Ackerman, John Lewis, and Elliot Engel.
And others I don't know about. I just saw those three.
Me too.
I saw Gary Ackerman hold up the boxer shorts, and I was outraged. I was indignant. Did you see that?
Yes.
I think that should be a crime. That's tantamount to burning the flag, because what you're doing is mocking the flag. It does not belong. Betsy Ross didn't make a pair of boxer shorts. She made a flag.
Why didn't he get outraged about the fact that a pair of boxer shorts were used to make an American flag to begin with? But, coming
That's
from...
what I say, right.
It automatically makes you support the amendment because these are people who have never once supported the United States for anything, so it makes you immediately suspicious as to their motives for opposing it. If the opposition had come from a Bob Dornan, say, it wouldn't bother me a bit because I know where his heart is. And the reason I'm for the anti-flag burning amendment is not because the country will fall apart. We know that won't happen. It's because it sends a definitive message rejecting the thinking that came out of the disastrous 1960s that caused us to even be concerned about this activity.
John, remember, the last few weeks I've been stressing the, quote, revolution.
I was just going to say...
And what do I say? What is the revolution? It's the sum total of all the people and organizations who would seek to convince the American people that our institutions, our political, social, economic, religious, and political institutions are invalid, illegitimate, corrupt. And what burning the flag does is to lend credence to the idea that our political, social, economic, cultural, moral, and religious institutions are invalid and corrupt and worthy of going up in smoke.
Right.
That flag is the symbol of the institutions of America.
Right, and that decade, it didn't just produce a concerned, loyal opposition. It spawned a revolution, like you said, dedicated to the destruction of Western culture. And this is one way to send a message that will never allow them to win. And by the way, Jay, committing a physical act, see, this is the sneakiness of liberals. They always try to make these pathetic analogies to get their way. A physical act is not the same as speech. You have a right to be a racist in America if you want. You can say anything you want. But when you act on that racism and it breaks the law, then you should pay the price. And I'll give you just two examples of the twisted thinking of liberals, Jay. I heard another liberal on another show today say, these right-to-lifers, who are basically mostly conservative, they're against abortion, but they're for the death penalty. Jay, you tell me what somebody who's murdered 7 people has to do with an innocent unborn who may turn out to be a great person. This is the type of sick analogies that they make that they just can't understand, or they just don't get it. And here's another one. Heard a liberal talk show host say, well, when the gays marched in their parade, they threw all their garbage in the trash can. I don't know any heterosexuals.
No, they didn't. A lot of them walked away.
Well, they were the trash. But, they'll throw the Holy Eucharist on the floor and stomp on it. But if they throw a dirty cup in a trash can, it makes them good people.
All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. The legendary John of Staten Island. John! Hey.
Got a lot of action tonight going on.
That's right.
But,
I'm Action Jackson.
And now you got it. Hey, Jay, I wanted to respond to a couple of things that I heard. Guess who talk about earlier? Carl from Manhattan. Now, first of all, he said, if Senator Packwood were a Democrat, the Republicans would have been all over him.
You Republicans are such hypocrites.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. Well, first of all, Jay, if that were true, then why is Ted Kennedy and Christopher Dodd, who made a waitress sandwich in a restaurant in Washington, D.C., how come they're still in office along with those other characters that you were talking about? And by the way, it was Democrats as well as Republicans that came down hard on Senator Packwood and Mel Reynolds. So they're in this together.
That's right. That is correct.
Then he defended William Kunstler as a defender of the downtrodden and poor.
Carl said that?
Yeah.
No, not all the downtrodden and poor. Only if they were the downtrodden and poor who met his ideological criteria, which is hatred for this country.
That's it. Now you got it. And besides, the Chicago 7 weren't downtrodden. These were spoiled brat middle-class punks.
True.
So he just went after anybody who hated this country, and that was his big heroes who he tried to save. Downtrodden by the ankle.
Yeah, but besides, one of the Chicago 7 was a guy who a couple of years later ended up being taken in for selling cocaine drugs on the street to an undercover agent, not for charity, but for profit, to put in his own pocket. And the miserable wretch later took his life in a hotel, cheap Fleabag Hotel in Pennsylvania, which is where he belonged. I mean,
that's right.
Barry Freed, a guy who with the help of many co-conspirators, was able to live as a fugitive for, 10 years?
Yeah. Good riddance to them all.
But here's another thing he was talking about. Randy Weaver. He said that when they showed Randy Weaver's house, they showed his son's room, and it had a picture of Martin Luther King with a SWAT sticker on it, and he was outraged. He said, oh, this is the nice family that they had on TV. Well, I'll tell you, Jay, as a white person, as an American, I'm tired of being assaulted with T-shirts with the likeness of Malcolm X, a hater of America and white people, with the caption that reads, quote, by any means necessary, a subtle threat that if you don't do what we want, we'll go so far as to kill you.
And does like your emphasis, does kill you.
Yes.
The